Well, it's January 16th, 2018. It's about 10 degrees outside with a couple of inches of snow on the ground here in wonderful southern Missouri Ozarks. This time of year I always start thinking about the good old days, which I guess these are the good old days. But I start thinking about whenever you get out and feed the cows and do all the things that you got to do to keep things going. How different things are today than they was whenever I was a kid. My good old days, I guess, which I think they were good old days. But I always think it's strange on one hand, funny on the other hand, what normal is. Which I guess really it's just a perception of the world around you. But whenever I was a kid, if school was called off or it was on the weekend or whatever, I would always have to go with my dad to feed the cows, which is down at a different location than what we lived at. It was about a 30-minute drive down there, kind of through the woods. And back in them days, if the weather was anything like it is now, today, snow on the ground, cold, we had a two-wheel drive pickup. We'd all pile in. Of course, we'd have lots of clothes piled on because we was going to have to work outside, so need to be prepared, of course. We'd pile into the old truck, take off, and it'd be slipping and sliding the whole way there. And of course, there would always be some exciting points when you went down into the holler. You didn't know if you was going to be able to come out the other side, you know. That was always an adventure. And there was one time in particular I remember that it always sticks with me because looking back, it was a big adventure day, but it's pretty symbolic of the difference in now and then. We took off. It was probably mid-morning, and we got on the highway. Well, the highway had not been snow plowed, so it seems to me like there was about a foot of snow on. Of course, like I said, this two-wheel drive pickup. So we were probably going down the tracks that someone else had laid, best I recall, but there was a big hill in between here and where we was going. And we got about halfway up the hill and spun out. So we'd have to back down, and there's a hairpin curve at the bottom of this hill. So we'd have to back around and get just as far as we could up the other side so that we'd get a run at it, you know. And I don't know, after 4 or 5 tries, it seems like we finally got over it, so on down the road. Well, we get to the driveway of the farm we were going to, and the snow was like 3 foot deep where it had drifted across this driveway. So we got going as fast as we could into the drift. So we got a little ways in, we'd back out, hit it again, back out, hit it again, and about the 4th time you couldn't back out. You was in too far and you was just stuck. So we had a tractor, of course, at this other farm we went to. But at the time, the only tractor we owned for years was an old Farmall H. Now this tractor had slick tires on it, but it would go. It was a 6-volt starting system on it, so it would just barely crank when it got cold. And of course my dad knew the perfect combination to get it started. So we walked down to the barn to get this old tractor to pull the pickup on into the farm. And I can remember walking from the pickup down to the barn where this tractor was and thinking to myself, boy, I hope this thing starts, because it's the only chance we got to get the pickup out and then get back home, of course. So we get down there, and my dad, he does the secret combination. Hit the starter on it, and it cranked about 3 times, fired right off. Just like automatic, you know. So we drive it up to where the pickup was and tie the chain on the pickup, and it was all we could do to pull the pickup through the snow with this old tractor with the slick tires on it. 2 foot of snow up through the driveway. So then we'd finally get down to the barn, and we had a cut-off pickup bed trailer from an old 50-something International pickup, and that was our feed wagon. We hook it to the tractor, back it into the barn, and then load it with square bales, which I can't remember how many we put on. It seemed like it was around 20 bales or something like this. Then we'd take off out through the field, somebody driving the tractor, which is usually me or my brother. And my dad and I or whoever would be riding on the wagon or the trailer. You'd pull out your pocket knife, because you had to have a pocket knife to operate, you know, and cut the strings on the hay bales and feed off the hay. You're just going through the middle of the field. Well, the cows, they would just surround you because they was ready for hay, you know. So after about probably 10 or 15 minutes of that, then we'd make it back to the barn, back the tractor back into the barn, leave it parked in there, brush everything off, cut ice if you had to on the ponds, get back in the truck, try to get back out the driveway, which if you had the trail kind of blazed, you could kind of go ahead and get out. But we'd have the heater would be blasting wide open, and you'd never get hot. Even with 2 or 3 sweatshirts on, insulated coveralls on. Your feet would be freezing the entire time, from the time you left the house to the time you get back. And usually the glass would go to fogging up, because I guess all the heat blowing around on the inside of the truck and all the cold air on the outside, of course. Which there was no real defrost or anything like that, other than it'd blow a little warm air up on the windshield, which made it worse. So we'd be sitting in there packed in, and the windows all fogged up, freezing to death. And we'd finally make it home. This whole ordeal, it was probably a 2 or 3 hour ordeal, depending on how things had went. So we'd go in the house, once we got home, warm up, probably eat a little something, pile it all back on, and then go out and play in the snow the rest of the day. And if we were lucky, unlucky for everyone else, but if we were lucky, the roads were packed down and frozen, and we lived on a big hill, so we would sled down the hill all afternoon. So you'd slide down the hill, struggle to walk back to the top of the hill so that you could sled back down to the bottom of the hill again. And we thought this was great. Of course, we didn't have anything else to do. We'd have been trapped in the house if we weren't doing that. But looking back on them good old days, you know, I thought it was fun. My sister and brother, you know, we'd have all day to play in the snow, play on the sled, freeze to death. Once you got cold enough, we'd go back in the house and we'd warm up a little bit, and maybe go out and hit it again before it got dark. But those were my good old days. And I do look at them as good old days. We didn't have all of the modern conveniences of today, which today, whenever I go to feed cows, I got a four-wheel drive pickup. It goes like nothing. You kick the defrost on, there's no frost on the windows. You get on the tractor, you got a cab that keeps the wind off of you. If it's not too windy, I'd just soon be outside in the open anyway, so that's kind of a funny thing. But the struggles, whenever I was a kid, I thought was an adventure. I'm sure my dad did not, but then you look back, whenever he was a kid, what they had to do, it would have really been a struggle, looks to me like. So that's my good old day story. These are maybe your good old day stories, but I just thought it'd be fun to share that with you. So as time goes on, maybe a little perspective. Next time.